There are so many disingenuous articles being written. The New York Times has an article out today reminding people that Trump is mentioned a lot more in the Epstein emails that have just been released than Bill Clinton. So you're like, oh, hey, what the hell's going on here? But then you read 32 paragraphs in and you come to the conclusion that, oh, the reason he's mentioned a lot is because Epstein was bashing Trump constantly for throwing him out of Mar-a-Lago.
Get him out of here. Get him out.
Then comes the revelation that a New York congresswoman was literally texting directly with Jeffrey Epstein during her cross-examination of Michael Cohen in Congress. Like, what should I say? What shouldn't I say? To try and make Trump look bad. You realize Epstein is clearly an established enemy of Trump's because he didn't like the fact that he could no longer recruit women at Mar-a-Lago and that Trump wasn't part of his weirdo cabal of whatever the hell was going on. But the Democrats aren't actually giving you that full truth or that full perspective when it comes to Epstein and him mentioning Trump. They're just trying to create like a death by 1,000 cuts scenario where they can selectively leak carefully and strategically redacted emails to make Donald Trump look bad.
He knows what he's talking about.
Okay, this started last week with the Virginia Jeffrey thing. Virginia Jeffrey, sadly, is no longer with us. But she had testified multiple times that she had never witnessed Donald Trump do anything wrong and that Donald Trump had never hit on her or interacted with her in an unpleasant manner. She testified multiple times to that effect and wrote a book in which, in her own words, flat out said, yes, Donald Trump wasn't a part of this thing. Are the Democrats mentioning that in any of these articles?
The answer would be no.
Answer would be no. What they're doing is releasing emails with her name in them, but blocking out her name and calling her victim. Now, why do they do that? Because if you see her name, you go, oh, that's the woman who said he didn't do anything wrong. But if you don't see her name, you go, victim. Who was he hanging out with that was a victim?
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
So the truth is, there's a game of selective omission happening, and it represents the next step forward for the Democrats for the foreseeable future because they just don't have an answer. The shutdown blew up. The Obamacare issue, yeah, we need to lower the price of health care. But the reality is the price of health care is so high because somebody passed a health care bill in 2009 with 0 Republican supporters.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. Period.
Obamacare sent your premium soaring by over 300%. The Democrats passed those health care subsidies. We all know this now. You can sing along in the car. You can sing along if you're an OTR trucker. Okay, but the fact remains they don't have a path forward. So they're back to the Epstein stuff. Here is, and this is really funny stuff, here is Scott Jennings over on CNN reading them some of their truth, clip 7.
Is that new information that he knew Jeffrey Epstein? Is it new information that Trump excommunicated him from Mar-a-Lago? Is it the only new information that we got this week off those emails was that somebody from the New York Times was advising Jeffrey Epstein, and we learned tonight from the Washington Post that Jeffrey Epstein was programming Democratic members of Congress. We didn't learn anything we didn't already know about Donald Trump, which was Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and now Democrats are aligning themselves with Jeffrey Epstein because Orange Man bad.
And that's what it is. Understand, the Democrats, as you know, control the Senate, the House, and the presidency under Joe Biden.
I don't remember that ever happening.
But it did. And was there any interest in knowing this Epstein stuff? Of course not. Here is Charlemagne the God over on Power 105 on the Breakfast Club here in New York, telling you flat out the liberal media, for some reason, is ignoring Democrats on the list. Gee, I wonder why. Here it is, clip 4.
It's funny how the news works. Because Bill Clinton, wrote a letter to, Jeffrey Epstein as well for his birthday, but nobody's talking about that. Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey Epstein had a picture of Bill Clinton in a dress and high heels, in his New York mansion, but nobody's talking about that. My thing is this. I don't care who's on the list. Everybody got to go. Mm-hmm. Burn it all down. Yeah. Like, that's just simple as that. Mutually assured destruction. Whoever's on that list need to go. Nobody needs to be protecting pedophiles. I don't care what party they are.
No, period. And, to that point, though, Clinton is not the president right now. If he was, you'd think that anyways, yeah, I think he would still be under scrutiny if he was the president right now.
No, he wouldn't, because liberal media wouldn't push the issue.
And he is damn right. The liberal media would not push the issue. Okay, if Bill Clinton was president, the liberal media ain't going after the guy.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
There's no way. Do you understand They had no interest in this when the Democrats were president. Okay, Epstein got convicted in this ridiculous plea deal under Barack Obama. Did Obama ask for some type of an inquisition into what went on?
The answer would be no.
No. Okay. All of this information was out there during the entirety of the Biden presidency. Did the Democrats want to go anywhere near it?
The answer would be no.
No. So they're basically trying to do this as the next get you mad at Trump. That is the Democrat strategy. It's exhausting because there's no deliverable. If there was, reputation destroying or politically toxic revelations about Trump and Epstein, they would have come out over 15 years ago.
I agree with that.
Okay, straight up. Guys, they leaked a Supreme Court decision. Do you know how illegal it is to leak a Supreme Court decision? And to this day, nobody's gone to jail. Okay, but they were willing to break the law because they thought the Dobbs decision was going to help them in the midterms. If you think they'd break the law to win the midterms, can you only imagine what they would do to win a general election? Okay, you have pretty basic understanding of what that would entail. It would entail what? An impeachment post-presidency for Donald Trump. That's what happened in January of 2021. 91 criminal indictments. We had never indicted a president once. They suddenly indicted one 91 times. They sued to take him off the ballot. He was shot once. There was a man laying in a tree to shoot him a second time, were it not for an eagle-eyed Secret Service member who spotted the guy. And the point is, even then, they still continue to tell you he was the threat to democracy.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
The point is, if there was Epstein dirt, it would be there. They wouldn't be leaking selectively edited emails. They'd be leaking emails. Emails that say Epstein did something with Trump and the kids.
He's a lousy dad, but he's right.
But they don't have that. Trump knows that. And I'll tell you why he's suddenly saying release everything. And he was, to be clear, trying to move on from this. He was. And I'll tell you why he was trying to move on from this is because he understood that the only thing that could come from this was a lot of selectively leaked emails to try to give the left wing of this country grounds to put lies into the bloodstream that never get retracted. To this day, Democrats think Russia stole the 2016 election. And the only reason you don't know that is because Bill Barr and the Mueller probe didn't go far enough. That's what they believe. Okay? To this day, they believe that Donald Trump never condemned neo-Nazis and white nationalists and simply said there were fine people on both sides. Get over it.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
And this Epstein email, forever, for all of eternity, will now be believed by half the country that Trump was alone with an Epstein victim for 3 hours in Epstein's house. Okay, and they're not going to factor in the retraction that it's actually the girl who testified he did nothing and wrote a book that he did nothing. They get the lie into the bloodstream and they just run with it for all of eternity because they think it gives them some type of a moral high ground. They think it gives them a cavalier reason to just dismiss everything. Well, this guy's a pedophile. Well, this guy's a Russian. Well, this guy's a Nazi. He said the Nazis are fine. So why am I even going to listen to you? You know who votes for this crap? Stupid people. Stupid people who are fine with pedophiles and Nazis and colluding with Russia, except they're wrong about all three things.
Correctamundo.
So here's Trump flat out saying, fine, though. If this is the game we're going to play, just release everything. Just release. Yes, they're going to make me look bad in the media. It doesn't matter. They never give me a fair shake anyway, but they're going to make people on your side look a hell of a whole lot worse. Here it is, clip one.
Well, I don't want to talk about it because fake news like you're a terrible reporter, and fake news like you, they just keep bringing that up to deflect from the tremendous success of the Trump administration. So a guy like Massey, his poll numbers are showing he's at 6% approval rating right now. And we call him Rand Paul Jr. because he never votes for the Republican Party. So they're using Jeffrey Epstein as a deflection from the tremendous success that we're having as a party.
But therein lies the real problem for the Democrats, is that there are things Trump needs to fix. He has been tremendously successful, but opposing his agenda does not offer the Democrats a deliverable. What I mean by a deliverable is you got something for supporting the Democrats. Like if you supported Trump, you got a secure border, the lowest number of recorded border crossings in history. He hasn't yet broken Obama's record for deportations, but he's sure closing in on it pretty quick. My God. Okay, you got peace in the Middle East. Arabic nations that wanted to blow Israel off the map, they're our only ally in that region that shares our value. They all recognize their right to exist now, and they're engaged with them as an active trading partner. Stability in the Middle East, the likes of which we've never seen. They're putting a lot of pressure on Putin and Russia right now to end that war. Okay, we have a lot of deliverables. There's no tax on tips. Yeah, the gas prices are down a little bit. How come we're not seeing a price reduction at the pump yet? Because as they told us out in Fargo this week at the big AG round table we did with a lot of farmers and, finance guys and tractor salesmen and drone salesmen and everything you could imagine, fertilizer, seed. Me and Brian Kilmeade sat down with some of the most brilliant people in agriculture I'll ever come across. I mean, just bananas, bonkers intelligent. And they were explaining to us that it's the actual diesel fuel that directly affects the price of what ends up in the grocery store because that's what's going into all of the trucks. So that's the next frontier, affordability. That's what Trump has to go after. Okay, Trump lowers the diesel prices. That's step one. They do a little bit more to help our farmers and level that playing field. That's step two. But again, those are things that are a deliverable to you if they happen. If the Democrats just sit there and tell you Trump is a dirty, freako who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, what do you get out of that? And the answer is nothing. Okay? What they might get out of it is complete and total party ruination because we've got Congresswomen openly texting the guy during hearings. We now have an unearthed email that he was introduced to Hakeem Jeffries as early as 2013 as the Brooklyn Barack, a rising star in the party. And the point is, there's so much more damaging information there for the Democrats than the Republicans that Trump has just made peace with the fact that, hey, yeah, the media is going to make me look bad, but they're going to make me look bad if I give a kid a puppy. If Trump gives a kid a puppy, the media is going to be like, Hitler had puppies. So he's decided to hell with it, okay, and wants to release every single thing. So the good news for the Democrats is we might see the Epstein files after all. The bad news is we might see the Epstein files after all. I can tell you about the next guest. She's not only the head girls wrestling coach at Bixby High in Oklahoma, she is a U.S. Olympian, a U.S. Army veteran, and a retired American professional wrestler, which is all to say she is way too classy for this show, but she's joining us anyway, and we're thrilled to have her. Jenna Burkert is on the line. Hey, girl.
Hey, thanks so much, Jimmy, for having me.
No, thank you for classing up the show.
I appreciate it.
Of course, of course, of course. So I wanted to talk about you and your incredible story. I think this is really inspiring stuff, and I was hoping you could give us a little bit of this background because I kind of gave them your bio, but in no particular order. I'm assuming this started where? Were you in the Army before you became a professional wrestler, or were you a wrestler first?
I was a wrestler first, so I started when I was 6 years old, and I'm originally from Long Island, New York. So.
Wait, nobody told me that. That's where I'm from. Yeah. Are you serious?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm from Rocky Point.
Oh, get out of here. I used to go to a bar in Rocky Point called Tim Hickey's that you could get into with like a library card. Like for real. Yeah. That was like
small town.
Yeah. But it was a great town. We used to go there when we were in high school. That's really funny. So I did not know that about you, but I grew up in Levittown, which is my way of telling you not to use any big words. But stick with me. So you were six in Rocky Point. Take it away.
Yep. Yeah. So they were handing out flyers in my first grade class, and I snagged one up, and then this boy in my class named Raymond, he like ripped it back from me, and he was like, "Jenna, you cannot do that. You're a girl." And I was like, I ripped the flyer back, and I was like, "Oh yeah, well watch me." And then I just ran off the bus and begged my parents, and my mom was like, "Jen, are you crazy? You're going to be the only girl." And I was like, "What's your problem?" And she's like, "I guess nothing." So yeah, that was kind of how I started. We had a really good wrestling room over there with Darren Goldstein, who was at like the senior national level, kind of got me hooked up with just understanding that women's wrestling was out there. Now, it wasn't when I was growing up. I grew up wrestling boys, was on all the boys teams. And so he kind of intro to me, as I was coming up, right, in like the early 2000s, was going through that women's wrestling was just sort of starting up. And so, now seeing where we're at in 2025 and coaching a girls high school team, like it's come a long way. So it's insane.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. We're talking to Jenna Burkert if you're listening on the radio side. And it's my understanding, though, that you're coaching a team at Bixby High that's pretty freaking dominant, no?
Yeah, we're pretty darn good. I've been really lucky to kind of get to know these girls. I'm only on year 2 being here. But it's just a wonderful community in Oklahoma where they are just very supportive of athletics, academics. It's one of the best schools arguably in Oklahoma. And I also teach high school there. So I teach high school leadership.
That's cool.
So I do have a really, really great time with my students and my wrestlers. And we were ranked nationally as high as number 2 in the nation last year, moved down to finish the year at number 4. So looking to build this program up to be one of the, I want to be one of the most dominant ones in the country and start going international.
No, I think that's amazing. I think it's a really good, inspiring story. Is there like a website I can send people to help you? Is there anything we can be doing? Because we're getting a lot out of this on our end. Okay, a lot of my listeners have gambling problems. So now that they know how successful Bixby High is, they know they can make some cash on the side. Is there a way for them to help you?
Yes, let's put it towards wrestling for sure in general, but then girls wrestling, of course. And then I have a link I can send out to you. But it's we're just trying to fundraise for our wrestling team so that we can get all the stuff we need so that we can be competitive and travel. We're really fortunate where we take our girls to nationally ranked competitions to just get them the best.
I love that.
And so it does require lots of traveling and all that stuff. But yeah, I'll get that to you for sure.
I love that. I mean, the steroids alone have to be so. I'm kidding. Stop it. Stop it. Give me a word on this then, Jenna, since I got you here. As a girl who started out competing against boys, you're actually doing the opposite of what a lot of boys are trying to do in the modern era. Is that a frustration for you guys? Is that something you encounter in your travels, men trying to compete in the women's division, or no?
At this age, not really. So when I was at the senior level, there was just one situation of it, but we pretty much it wasn't a concern because we dominated that person.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't maybe a threat, I guess. But it is definitely popping up around the nation, especially in high school. And yeah, it's definitely frustrating for women in sports, because this is trying to protect without a doubt.
Yeah, and we only say that in the interest of fairness. Nobody's saying it with any other intent in mind other than we want fair matches and stuff like that. And I think the best way to kind of combat, the political element of that whole thing is to just promote women's sports, is to just fund them better, is to just help better, is to just raise that awareness and the altitude that they take place at. And I think that's something everybody listening would be cool to want to do. As a girl who got into wrestling at a young age and became a wrestler herself, were there any wrestlers that inspired you? And I don't mean in your actual organized wrestling field. I mean in the type of wrestling that I still have the toys on my desk from.
Totally. Yeah. So I was a Hulk Hogan girly. I definitely loved The Rock. What is it? Scotty Too Hottie? Is that correct?
Yeah.
That was one of them. Yeah. My dad's a huge WWE guy. And growing up, I went to those sort of events and man, if I didn't take so long on my world and Olympic journey, I definitely would have tried to go that route.
That would have
but
been.
We've got a wrestler in there, if you know, Tamara Stock. She's in that the program in there. So she was our Olympic champ in Tokyo. So
that's amazing.
She's doing that now. She's doing incredible. So
look at you guys. We're talking to the great Jenna Burkert about her illustrious wrestling career and coaching career. And what I would tell you to do, if you can swing it, is, definitely come back on the show. We can talk more about the program. Get me that link. And as a fee for the services of promotion, I have a couple of people I need you to beat up in Oklahoma. Are you willing to? Can you do some? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I got a couple of people listening on KRMG in Tulsa that kind of need a whooping. So I will. If you send me the link, I'm going to send you a little blacklist of people that need to get a suplex. Can we work that out?
Done deal. I'm an Italian family member, so
I just got to pay you cash.
Exactly. Under the table, of course.
Right. Jenna, we love that. We love you. Keep being a friend of the show. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Heck yeah. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Appreciate you guys listening.
You're the coolest. Take care. The great Jenna Burkert. according to the early poll numbers out in California, respondents using their brain, our man Steve Hilton, who was on the show last week, is the current leader in the polls for the California, early vote. It's obviously a year away, but they've got Hilton on top in a state that traditionally goes Democratic. Here it is, clip 23.
One poll shows a Republican leading the field for the June primary. EMC research found 20% of likely voters support Republican Steve Hilton. Democrat Katie Porter follows with 16%. The only other Republican in the race, Chad Bianco, came away with 14%. He's a Riverside County sheriff. Meanwhile, 11% favored Congressman Eric Swalwell, who hasn't officially entered the race, but certainly seems like he's about to. In California, remember, the top two candidates move on to the general election regardless of party. So you could have a Democrat versus Democrat, Republican versus Republican, or Democrat versus Republican.
So there you go. So early voting has Hilton on top. And if it were to hold, he would have one of the two spots in the general election, which would be a big damn deal because it would mean California actually has a fighting chance again. I love California. I think it's the most beautiful state out there. It's an incredibly gorgeous state. The Pacific Coast Highway is amazing. I love watching Dodgers game at Chavez Ravine. But let me be honest, there are other good places to watch a game. If you go down to San Diego, old Petco Park where the Padres play, there's a lot of fine scenery in the bleachers.
Hubba, hubba.
Holy heck. Frisco is probably one of the nicest stadiums ever built, but you are actually freezing your buns off because you're right there on the water. It's a gorgeous stadium, Oracle Park. We were just there. We loved it. I'm a big fan of California. Okay, I've driven the whole thing top to bottom. I grew up rooting for California. I was born around, the aftermath of the Reagan governorship before he became the president. And I've just always liked California. I've always wanted to do well. And it's, there's a lot of blue cities that I root for. I loved Detroit growing up. I love the Tigers, Sparky Anderson, the 84 Tigers run away with the World Series. Kirk Gibson is on that team. It was a big damn deal to me as a little kid. So I don't root against Detroit because it's run by Democrats. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan who hates the Red Sox, but it truly pains me to know that Boston has basically just become the upper Middle East side. It's bananas. And I hate that it's being run the way it is. I want to see these places flourish. It's America. I don't want like a series of hellholes and the place where I live. I want the whole thing to flourish. So I do root for Steve Hilton out there. And I do hope they have an election that's focused on reality. Because as you travel the country in this hour, like Florida is where our attention is going to go because Byron Donalds is running to be the next governor. Byron Donalds will inherit basically the state that Ron DeSantis has created. When Ron DeSantis was first running for governor, Florida was considered a purple toss-up state. Florida is now solidly Republican by more than 10 points in the last two. It's a runaway state for Republicans. It is solid red. Trump, DeSantis had a massive re-election bid. In fact, even flipping Dade County of all places, and had the largest level of improvement amongst individual ethnic groups of anybody who's ever run two races in the state of Florida. He needed Trump to win the first time around because he was a former congressman. Trump went down there, campaigned his ass off, and DeSantis wound up winning the thing by a point. Okay, the next time around, he won by about 23 points. He has done a phenomenal job as governor. And one of the reasons he's done such a good job is because he is focusing on the nuts and bolts of governing. Make life better for people. Do not make government an obstacle to their well-being. I bring that up because DeSantis made this point yesterday. Florida has a bigger population than New York, yet New York has twice the budget of Florida.
Well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of.
Yeah, because it's runaway spending. People go, oh, but you don't understand. New York has New York City. Okay. Florida has Miami. Okay, is it as big as New York? No, but it comes with its own unique challenges. Okay, they've got all the other big Jacksonville, where we're being heard right now on WOKV. Orlando, where we're being heard on WDBO. Are you telling me Orlando's airport doesn't do the same volume as New York City's? Because you're wrong if you think so. It's where Disney World is. Okay, so picture the same volume of New York City if everybody had a stroller and a pair of mouse ears. Okay, it's madness. They've got tons of big cities down in Florida that everybody knows about. Okay, the fact remains there is no excuse for New York to have a smaller population than Florida and double the budget. other than the fact that they just keep spending money, which requires them to just keep raising taxes, something Ronald Reagan warned us about in the 80s.
Some say shift the tax burden to business and industry, but business doesn't pay taxes. Oh, don't get the wrong idea. Business is being taxed so much so that we're being priced out of the world market. But business must pass its costs of operations, and that includes taxes, on to the customer in the price of the product. Only people pay taxes, all the taxes. Government just uses business in a kind of sneaky way to help collect the taxes. They're hidden in the price. We aren't aware of how much tax we actually pay.
So think about that. And the reason he's bringing that up specifically is because in order to justify the spending we're about to see in New York when Mamdani takes over as a Democratic socialist, means that tax burden is going to get passed on to businesses. And when they get that tax burden, they then pass it on to consumers in the form of a higher cost. And the person who's ultimately hurt by Mamdani's style of leadership is the very poor person that he said he cared about when he ran for office. This is all about helping the little guy. Okay, but the little guy gets screwed the hardest, and I'll explain why. As I said earlier, raising business taxes raises the cost of goods. Raising the cost of goods makes the little guy pay more for them. Take it a step further, though. When the cities have economic shortfalls, they turn to direct forms of revenue. Direct forms of revenue mean what? Parking tickets, increased traffic tickets, red light cameras, bump up the tolls a little bit. Who does this all affect? The little guy.
Bingo, man, bingo.
When Bloomberg came into office, New York had a bit of a budget shortfall, so they started hiring ticket writers en masse. Okay, traffic ticket writers, DOT cops. They're cops, but they don't have guns. They're dressed up in powder blue shirts, and their job is to write 50 tickets a day. And who do they write those tickets to? Uber drivers, cab drivers, delivery drivers, electricians in their work vans, elevator repairmen, guys who are blue-collar people who have to drive in and out of this city to get around because they've got all their gears and their tools with them. If you're an electrician, you can't take the train with your van full of tools. You understand? So what happened was they did this massive ticket blitz in 08, 09, and 2010. And in order to get revenue up for the city, because there were a lot of expensive programs to be paid for, they just started ticketing the hell out of guys like myself. We used to get pulled over like 5 times a week, and they'd be like, that receipt on your dashboard as a cab driver, you guys don't know this? Okay, when you have a receipt, say I drop you off in a taxi, it prints out a receipt that's on the meter. Okay, if I don't rip that receipt off immediately and continue to drive around with that receipt on the meter, they can technically pull me over and write me a ticket.
That's not right.
Now, would anyone in a million years ever be looking for that receipt to write me a ticket? No. But when they increase the ticket writing quotas, they now start banging you for every ticky-tack thing so they can get the revenue from the driver. Okay, that's when they bump up parking tickets just the same. Here's a fun fact. Under Bloomberg, known thing, and this will happen under Mamdani, if you have an out-of-state plate on your car, whether it's parked legally or not, they will write you a ticket.
That's true. That is true.
The reason they'll write you the ticket is 85% of out-of-state recipients don't fight tickets because they can't take a day off to come back to the city, so they just write you the ticket because you'd rather blow the $100 than miss a day from work. That goes on. And that's what big budget cities like New York do when they create shortfalls with all the social services they're providing. And despite the fact that New York is talking about raising taxes and our governor, Kathy Hochul, just flip-flopped on Friday and went from I won't raise taxes to I will. Why? Because she's in a really difficult re-election and she knows she needs support from Manhattan. That's where all the voters are who vote liberal. So she doesn't want to piss off the Mamdani supporters. So now she's waffling and starting to embrace some of his ideas. But in order to embrace any of those ideas, you got to raise taxes. And if you raise taxes on the big guy who manufactures goods and sells them, you are inadvertently raising them on the little guy because he's got to pay for the increased cost of everything.
When you're right, you're right. And you're right.
But now if people start to flee the state as they're projecting, they're saying 3% of our population could leave. Okay, that's a number. They're 9% on the high side is the number. They say 9% of 8 million people could leave, which puts you around 750,000 people might leave the city. So if they're not collecting that tax revenue, if they're not collecting their monthly train ticket or their monthly, bucket of tolls they pay to drive in and out of the city, the only thing they can do then is raise taxes on you, okay, the people who are still around. And that's why big government is a problem. It might sound empathetic and good. Oh, big government. They're going to control the grocery prices. They're going to give away free housing to some people, the free buses. But you have to know by now, none of this stuff is free. Okay, none of it. Because somebody has to pay for it is the problem. And the person who has to pay for it always winds up being you, the middle class.
Thanks, big government weenuses.